Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, welcome you to class 29 from Madina book 2. Inshallah, what we're going to do is we're going to finish lesson number 12 and learn some more concepts, inshallah. So let's enter our class today. So we finished in our previous class where the Hamid, he speaks to his sons. He says, Maza taf'aluna ya abna'i, and Abna'u says, Naktubul wajibati. So we're just going to see Naktubu is fi'l mudarim marfu'un bi damma. So it is damma, so we know it's fi'l, and fa'il is mustatir because it is not attached to the fi'l, and taqdiruhu nahnu because we can see the alamat mudariya na, which suggested that it is a nahnu. So there's a fa'il and fa'il, and what is al-wajibati? It is maf'ulun bihi. So we know maf'ulun bihi is mansoob, but what do we see here? It is kasra. So wajibati. So why do we see kasra here? Because it is a pattern of jama mu'annath thalim. So we need to just revise ourselves about marfu, mansoob and majroor. So we know in a natural state a noun has a dhamma, tanween, a singular noun, and it is in marfu, and something comes and it happens mansoob, and something comes happens and the noun becomes majroor. So this is about nouns. So going to the pattern of jama mu'annath thalim. So we know the marfu form of jama mu'annath thalim is muslimatun, means atun represents marfu form, and what is the mansoob form? It is muslimatin. So whenever you see atin, that is a sign of mansoob, and again muslimatin is a sign of majroor. So depending what comes in front of it, so we can decide whether it is mansoob or majroor. Nice. And we know for the jama mudhakkar salim, so it is waw and noon. Una is a combination which tells us that the noun is marfu. So nouns are marfu. Muslimuna is jama mudhakkar salim. So waw represents the sign of marfu, and muslimina. So there's a difference here. Muslimina is the noun which is a mansoob, and ya is the sign of mansoob, and it is jama mudhakkar salim. And muslimina again, it is the jama mudhakkar salim, and ya is the sign of majroor. So we're just going to give an example from Quran so we can be easy to analyze and recognize these nouns. So if you just go to this it says khalaqallahu samawati wal arda. So khalaqa is a fa'al madi, which is mabni, it doesn't change its sign, and Allahu, the word Allahu azwajal is the fa'il because it's having dhamma, and as-samawati is your maf'ulun bihi. So Allah created the heavens. Wa ataf al-arda. Why is al-arda? Because mawtufun ala as-samawati is mansubun. So there we have sign of fatha, is a regular noun, where it is the samawati is based on the pattern of jama muannath salim. So there is another verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Ahzab. So it's a very long verse from that surah, which gives 10 different characteristics of men and women, Muslim women and women. So it says innal muslimina. So we know inna is harf tawqid wa nasbin, and it has ismu mansubun, and it has khabar. Okay, so here mansub type of nouns in the pattern of jama mudhakkar salim and jama muannath salim. So if you see here, innal muslimina والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والقانتين والقانتات والصادقين والصادقات والصابرين والصابرات والخاشعين والخاشعات والمتصدقين والمتصدقات والساعمين والسائمات والحافظين فروجهم والحافظات والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما. Alhamdulillah, based on our knowledge, we can actually analyze the whole ayah here. Inna harfu tawqid wa nasbin. Al-Muslimina is ismu inna mansubun. So it is a pattern of Jama Muzakkar Salim. Muslimuna is marfu, Muslimina, Muslimina. And wow is ataf, and then it's mawtufun ala mawtufun ala all the other. So it most definitely the Muslim. So if you can see the root words here, every word has a root word which can give you the meaning what it represents. Muslimina, Muslimati, Mu'minina, the Iman, wal Mu'minati, the believer women, and Qanitina, Qanata is obedient. So obedient men, obedient women, was Sadiqina, the truthful men, the truthful women, was Sabirina, the patient men and patient women, wal Khashi'ina, Khashi'a is the fearing men and women, wal Mutasaddiqina, wal Mutasaddiqati, was Sa'imina, was Sa'imati. So that's how. And A'addallahu lahum ajran maghfiratan wa ajran azima is your khabar, is the Jumlatul Fa'ila coming as a khabar. And A'adda is your fa'al madi, Allahu is your fa'il, lahum maghfiratan is your maf'ulun bihi. So Allah will increase what? Is your maghfiratan, wow ataf, ajran aziman is your again mawtufun ala maghfiratan, and aziman is your naat for ajr. So that's how we are analyzed. So that's just to give a brief how the nouns can be recognized in the pattern of marfu, mansub and majroor. So going forward to our lesson, so the Hamid asked his sons, atafhamuna durusa jayyidan, do you understand the lessons what you're reading nicely? So the children says, Abna'u na'am nafhamuha. So we did this, nafhamuha waiha, because this ad-durusa is here kullu jama' mu'annas, so it is treated as a singular female. Nafhamuha jayyidan walhamdulillah. So now Hamid turns to his daughters and he says, he's still speaking to their sons. He says, ayya suratin tahfazun al-ana. You see here, ayyu has come and it has become ayya because it is coming as a maf'ulun bihi, but because it is a question, ismul istifham, so it will come first. So in a normal pattern it will be tahfazuna ayya suratin. So you are memorizing which surah, but because it's in ismul istifham, so it will come before the fa'al. So ayya suratin, we know ayya, it always comes as a mudaf and there will be mudaf ilayhi after it. So ayya mudaf ilayhi suratin. So which surah? Tahfazuna. So tahfazuna is fa'ilun mudari'un marfu'un bi subuti noon. So this is the difference in the verb, that here waw represents hum, whereas muslimuna, waw represents sign of marfu for jama muzakkar salim, but for the verb this waw represents hum. So we should be able to identify the verb and a noun, and which is a marfu and mansub form. So here it is a marfu form. The natural state of verb will be a marfu form. So tahfazuna is fa'ilum mudari'un marfu'un bi subuti noon. The presence of noon tells that it is marfu. So ayya suratin tahfazuna al-ana. So the children says, Ahmad says, amma ana. So we know amma has come, so we are looking for fa. So amma, as for me, ana fa ahfazu. So ahfazu is your fa is your coming for because of the amma, and ahfazu is your fa'al. So I am memorizing what? So then it makes sense. So we need looking for a maf'ulun bihi, surata. So that's the maf'ulun bihi, wa huwa mudaf, and al-mulki is your mudaf ilayhi. So as for me, I am memorizing Suratul Mulk. Wa amma, again amma has come, so we are looking for fa. So amma haulai, and as for these, he's still pointing to his brothers, is fa yafhazuna. Yafhazuna, so they are memorizing. Ya and waw says it is hum. So noon is a sign of marfu. Yahfazuna is fa'ilun mudari'un marfu'un bi subuti noon, and memorizing what? Suratal qalami. Suratal qalami is your maf'ulun bihi. So coming to our next slide. So here Hamid asks, وَمَاذَا تَفْعَلْنَ أَنْتُنَّ يَا بَنَاتِ. So what are you doing? Say تَفْعَلْنَ. So it is, we see ta and sukoon and the lam kalma is antunna. Is antunna. So they're telling antunna ya banati in front of, as for he's just talking to his daughters, ya banati. So here, how do we describe this fa'al? So when we see taf'alna, we know antunna and hunna, they are mabni, so they don't change. So how do we describe it in grammatical terms? It is taf'alna fa'ilum mudari'um mabniyun ala sukoon, and noon is the fa'il. So what is this mabni? Why we call it as mabni? We're just going to understand. So we know the fa'il, the basic form, we have fa'in and lam. So the changes mainly occur, the marfu and mansoob is in the lam kalima. For example, if we see yadhabu, tadhabu, tadhabu, adhabu, nadhabu, this is called afwalul arba. These are the 4 verbs, but even though it is 5, because the tadhabu is repeated, it's called counted as 1. So 4 verbs. So here damma represents the sign of marfu, the fatha represents the sign of mansoob, and the sukoon represents the sign of majzoom. So we know the fa'il is marfu, mansoob, and majzoom. So it's not majroor. So and then we got another group which is a noon aata hai, noon jata hai. So we know the presence of noon. So how do we describe this? Fa'il mudari' marfu'un bi subuti noon. So noon says that it is the fa'il is marfu, like yadhabani, yadhabuna, tadhabani, tadhabuna. And when the noun is not there, so these are called afwalul khamsa. Even though there are 7 verbs here, but because they are repeated, tadhabani 3 times, is considered as 1. So we have 5 fi'ls, so it's called afwalul khamsa. And the absence of noon is the mansoob and majroor. So depending on what comes in front of it, we can have to analyze whether it is mansoob or majroor. So how do we describe the mansoob or majroor form of the fa'il? We say yadhaba is fa'ilun mudari'un mansoobun or majzoomun bi hadafi noon, with dropping of noon. So with the noon has been dropped, so we know it is mansoob or majzoom. Whereas a noun can be mansoob or majroor, like muslimuna, muslimina, muslimina, ya, the sign of mansoob and majroor. Whereas the fa'il is mansoob and majzoom. And we know, and the third group what we have is a mabni, where the lam kalima has a sukoon and it does not change its sign, it remains the sukoon, and this noon is the fa'il. This noon is not the sign of marfu, but it is the sign of fa'il. So it is, if it is marfu, it will be yadhabna, yadhabna, tadhabna, and if it is mansoob, it will be yadhabna, tadhabna, and if it is majzoom, it will be yazhabna, tazhabna. So how do we describe this if it is fa'il is marfu, mansoob, or majzoom? So how do we say yadhabna fa'ilum mudari'um majzoomun bi sukoon? And it say, what we say is, it is fi mahalli rafa'in. That's how we describe if it is marfu. What we say is fa'ilum mudari'un mabniun ala sukoon fi mahalli rafa'in. And if it is mansoob, if we see certain nouns which comes in front of it, which makes the fa'il mansoob, so we'll say fa'ilum mudari'un mabniun ala sukoon fi mahalli nasbin, because now it is in the state, or it is in the house of nasb, using detail. And then majzoom, how do we say? Fa'ilum mudari'un mabniun ala sukoon fi mahalli jazmin. So the fa'ils are marfu, mansoob, and majzoom. And So only فعل مضارع is that changes its signs, and it has marfu form, it has mansoob form, it has majzoom form. Whereas فعل ماضي, خلق, كتب, درس, all these are mabni. So whatever comes in front of them, they don't change their signs, they remain. And even فعل أمر, we know it ends with sukoon and it doesn't change its signs in any forms. So only فعل مضارع. So just to remember this concept, what we have is a song from Brother Asif, which will help to.
فعل ماض فعل أمر مبنيان مبنيان فعل ماض فعل أمر مبنيان مبنيان فعل مضارع is معرب. It has three kinds of moods. فعل مضارع is معرب. It has three kinds of moods. It can be marfu, it can be mansoob, it can be majzoom, but never majroor. It can be marfu, it can be mansoob, it can be majzoom, but never majroor.
So that's how we will remember that the fa'al has three moods. So it can be marfu, mansoob and majzoom, but it can never have a majroor. That means the fa'al cannot have a kasra. So that's the whole moral. So going to a lesson. So the Hamid asks his daughters, Maza taf'alna. So what are you doing? Ya banati. Antunna ya banati. So the banat says, the daughter says, Nahnu al-an nal'abu. So we are now playing. So nal'abu fa'al mudari'um marfu'um bi damma and fa'il mustatir taqdiruhu nahnu. Because noon is alamatu mudari'. So Hamid says, Afi waqtil amali tal'abna. So fi is harf jar and a is harf istifham and waqti is your ism majroor wa huwa mudaf and amali is your mudaf ilayhi. In this time of work, tal'abna is, are you playing? So antunna in front of you, it says fa'ilum mudari'un mabniun ala sukoon and noon is a fa'il. So are you, all your daughters, are you playing in this time of work? So mata taqra'na ad-durusa wa mata taktubna al-wajibati. This is taqra'na. So we know qara'a, yaqra'u, taqra'na is your antunna. So when will you study your lesson, durusa, wa mata taktubna, and when will you write your homework? Wajibat is your homework. So we know wajibat is mansoob maf'ulun bihi. So the banat says nahnu qara'na. See, now here we have to understand the fa'al. Qara'na is fa'al madi. Qara' is your fa'al. Na represents nahnu. So na is the fa'il. So we, nahnu. So we studied ad-durusa. So that means nahnu, we have already studied our lesson. وَكَتَبْنَا. See, وَكَتَبْنَا. So katab is your fa'il, fa'il madi, and na is your fa'il, represents nahnu. So we already wrote, we wrote our homework. Walhamdulillah. So here is qara'na and katabna is your fa'il madi. So we should be able to identify which is fa'il madi and fa'il mudari' and what are the different signs, inshallah. That's the whole exercise. So Hamid asks them, Hamid tells them, ahsantunna. See, ahsantunna. So very well done. So ahsana, he did good. Ahsantunna, you did good. You all did very good. Ya banati. So هكذا تفعل التلميذات المجتهدات. So here we need to see. So هكذا is like that. So basically, and تفعل is your فعل مضارع مرفوع بضمة. So you know تفعل can be either هي or أنت. So here we know he's talking about تلميذات. So here it is the fa'il is considered as هي because it's talking about muannath and it is plural word. So we know tilmizatul mujtahidat, the hard working pupils. That's what it means. So like this work the hard working students, the pupils. Mata tadhhabna li ziyarati khalati kunna. So it's asking when will you go. So we know when mata comes we don't use the harful istiqbal. So mata tadhhabna. So when will you go? Tadhhabna. So that's the man'ud. Tadhhabna li ziyarati. When will you go to visit khalatu kunna, to visit your khala? So ta'arifna annaha maridatun. So again is your harfu istifham. Ta'arifna is your fa'il. So do you know? Arafa ya'rifu. Arafa he knows. Ya'rifu he knew. Ta'arifna. So do you all know? Annaha. So you know again anna comes min akhwatu inna. So it have ism and khabar. So annaha is the ism. That means we need to have two things here. So ism and what's the khabar? Maridatun, most of it that she is sick. So the Banat says Naam Na'arifu. See, we already know that. Na'arifu dhalik. So we know that the dhalika is your maf'ulun bihi mansubun. So this is a mabni noun, so it doesn't change its sign. So na'arifu fa'il madi. Fa'il mudari'. Sorry. Shafa'allahu. So here we need to see Shafa'allahu. So how does this verb is formed? Shafa plus ha. So Shafaya is the root word. So but it's pronounced as without dots. It is alif maksura. That's the sound of alif. But when it becomes mudaf, so the alif becomes a regular alif, and then a pronoun is attached. So Shafa'allahu. Sa'azhabu li ziyaratuha هذا المساء. So we will go. سنذهب. We will go لزيارتي. So li is harf jar, ziyarati is ism majrur wa huwa mudaf, and ha is your again mudaf ilayhi. So there are three words in this one word. It looks like one word, but there are three words. So we should be able to identify li ziyarati ha. So we will go to visit her هذا المساء. So this evening. So هذا is your ism al-shara and al-masa is your zarf. So that is badal. So hada is mubdal minhu. So hada represents what hada is what it represents. Like here it represents zarf. So hada we call it as a zarf. And it says nazhabu li ziyaratiha hada al-masa insha'Allah. So always whenever it is talking about futurity, you should always use insha'Allah. So Hamid says, Ya Ahmad, ata'arifu. See? Do you know? A'arafa, ya'arifu, ta'arifu is anta. Do you know? Mata yarji'ul jiranu min Makkata. So ta'arifu is your fa'il, yarji'u. So when will? So we are looking for the fa'il. So jiran means neighbors. It's a plural. Jarun means your singular neighbor, and jiran means neighbor. So here file is the plural file, but obviously we don't use a plural verb because we don't have to repeat the file. So mata yarji'ul jiran. So when will the neighbors return? Min Makkata, from Makkah. So Ahmad says Qala li Yusuf. So Yusuf is the neighbor, and he says Yusuf said to me. Qala fa'il madi, he said. So who said here? Yusuf said to me. Li is your jar majrur. Says innana سنرجع في الأسبوع القادم. That most definitely we will return in the next week. Usbu means week, qadim means next. So usbu al-qadim in next week. Azunnu annahum sayarji'una yawm as-sabt inshallah. We have done this word. Zanna yazunnu means he thinks. Yazunnu, tazunnu, tazunnu, azunnu, nazunnu. Azunnu means I think. So I think annahum sayarji'una, that they will come, they will return. Yawm as-sabt is on Saturday, inshallah. So here we need to note that we have got anna and inna. So we're going to just learn a little bit more about these two isms. It's a harf. So we know inna is harf tawqid wa nasbin. So we've learned that inna comes in front of jumlatul ismiya. So it makes, and it has ism and khabar. So for example, if you say inna, so inna hamidan talibun, inna hamidan fil fasli, inna hamidan. So in all these examples we see ism inna is mansoob and we have got khabar. But inna, when it comes in after a fa'al, so this inna turns into anna. So what we get is, we get anna. So we don't use inna after verb, for example. But the inna, it retains its form after only one particular verb, that is after qala. So after qala, inna will come, but otherwise anna will come. So we're going to do some examples that gives us more clarity. For example, if I say azunnu annal imtihana ghadan. So azunnu is your fa'al, and what comes after fa'al is anna. So I think that the exam is tomorrow. So again, if it gives another fa'al like sami'tu, I heard. So even if it's fa'al madi or fa'al mudari', so after the fa'al, so anna will come. Sami'tu, I heard that the exam is tomorrow. Sami'tu anna al-imtihana ghadan. But if you're using qala, so this is what you need to remember. So after qala, inna will come. So qala al-mudarrisu, the teacher said, inna al-imtihana ghadan. Most definitely the exam is tomorrow. So the both are harf tawqid wa nasb, but they have different positions. So qala inni abdullahi. So he said, most definitely I, for sure I am servant of Allah. So this is how inna and anna are used. So this was our lesson, how to identify different forms of fa'als. And to finish the class, we'll go to the last dialogue here, which says qala, Ahmad says to his dad that qala li Yusuf, Yusuf told to me. So because now qala is here, inna will come. Innana, that most definitely we, sanarjiu, we will return tomorrow. Fil usbu'il qadim, we will return in the next week. Azunnu, so now the other fa'al is coming. Azunnu annahum, so I think that they, sayarji'una yawm as-sabt inshallah, so they'll return on Saturday inshallah. So that brings to end of your class today inshallah. So the few concepts which we learned about inna, anna, and how to identify the nouns in the marfu, mansoob and majroor form, and how to identify the fa'als in the marfu, mansoob and majroor form. Inshallah, we will continue again with a new concept. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.